How does a song go from this to this? Or from this to this? Without sounding harsh or muddy.
Hi, I'm Jerry LEAL at Pyramid Recording. I put together a quick little video here to shed some light on the mastering services that we offer. I find a lot of my customers are very well informed when it comes to the production side, but when it comes to mastering, it seems to be a bit of a mystery. I think they may be missing out on one of the key elements of having a finely polished product. So here we go. Let's start with what mastering is not.
A recurring problem that I see that comes out of a lot of project studios is bass mismanagement. If something doesn't sound right in the mix because of a poor recording environment, or if one element is too loud or not loud enough, that needs to be addressed at the mix level, not the mastering level. Another common problem is oversaturation or clipping. A lot of times I'll get mastering projects from small independent studios where the engineer has either tracked or mixed the project at too hot of a level, resulting in a mix that is distorted and overcompressed and leaves me very few options to try to improve upon it. There are limitations to how loud the mastering engineer can get your music before the dynamics start going away and the quality of the recording begins to suffer. It's a good idea to bring in a track by a major artist in your genre that the mastering engineer can use as a reference. A mix that's crowded or overwhelmed with elements that are competing for the same space is typically not going to get any clearer once it's mastered. The most important thing that a mastering engineer does is to guarantee that your music is delivered not only at a competitive level, but also the ideal level for its genre. If a song is sent into a radio station at too hot or too low of a level, it will most likely be rejected. Proper ID3 tagging for MP3s is also critical. In this following simple illustration, I will zoom in on this speaker box, and you will notice that the proportion between the components and the space around them remains the same. Now, if you could just reach through time and space and turn your listeners' speakers up or down, achieving the ideal level in mastering would not be an issue. The two most critical level measurements are the peak level and the RMS level. The maximum peak level, also known as digital zero, is a finite boundary, or ceiling, and the relationship between these two is the headroom. There is also perceived loudness. Now, if you can imagine the outer frame of this video representing digital zero, or the maximum peak level, as the volume increases against a finite boundary, the proportions between the components and the space around them does begin to change. This waveform snapshot of a snare drum shows that there are four dimensions. There's attack, release, sustain, and decay. These characteristics of the waveform largely determine the sound of the snare drum. The leading edge or the transient peak of such waveforms are very prominent in the overall music file and often hit digital zero. In order to achieve an overall volume increase, these transient peaks must be dealt with without excessively changing the shape of the waveform. Your typical maximizer plugins square off the edges of the waveform in order to do this. This happens because inside the computer, the waveform is mapped out by a series of ones and zeros. In contrast, the yellow line represents what happens to the transient peak as it passes through an analog signal path pushed to the point of saturation. A tube circuit offers even smoother response. Instead of relying solely on software, a mastering house will generally use a combination of digital and analog equipment combined. Parallel compression and mid-side equalization are two additional tools the mastering house can use to make your music sound bigger, fatter, brighter, and punchier, while at the same time remaining clear and warm. In addition to achieving the ideal level, the mastering engineer will also make choices based on frequency. Boosting and cutting the right frequencies and achieving the ideal level are two key components in making sure your music is radio ready.
My outboard signal chain offers a Manley tube compressor and a Manley passive equalizer. Two things you're going to find at almost every major studio in the world. You can do a lot with software nowadays, but there's something a little classier about that analog sound. Since 1988, I've always had the simple philosophy of offering top quality results at a musician-friendly budget.
I'm seriously interested in helping you take your mixes to the next level. So please call, text, or email me now. 559-709-0610.